people like Darth Vader are still there. They're just so covered in their story and their anger and their judgment and their value system, because one of the things that's so cool about a villain like Vader is that he wasn't evil. He was just following his value system, which was his story. And if we can start reverse engineering our value system and realizing that it comes from our story, then maybe we can start being more open-minded towards the world and understanding how complex everyone is. Some of you may be familiar with Plato's cave allegory. The Greek philosopher puts forth a story about people chained inside a cave who only see their shadows upon the wall. They cannot see the outside world, and all they know is what they see against the wall. And so they see shadows day in and day out. They begin to think, or they learn to believe, that those shadows are reality, and that's what the world really is. And it isn't until they're freed and they leave that cave that these prisoners are able to see what the real world really is. They believed a story that they were telling themselves the whole time, and it wasn't reality. To transform this story for film combines Plato's cave allegory and Jungian philosophy to create the scene that we have on Yoda's planet of Dagobah, where Luke Skywalker goes into the cave thinking that he's facing who he at the time believes is his greatest opponent, Darth Vader, only to realize that he is in fact facing himself. For me as a child, I remember this scene both perplexed, haunted, fascinated, and moved me. It's one of my favorite scenes of all time in any film. And what we see on the other side of it is this result where we have the Return of the Jedi. And we see Luke Skywalker for the first time as a self-possessed, truly connected, and embodying his physicality character, which previously we didn't see. This is one of my favorite transformations in film, because as much as people like to make fun of Mark Hamill for this, even his physicality was so different. People make fun of how whiny he was.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Just what a kind of spoiled little teenager he seemed like. But I love noticing even his physicality is so boyish, and he kind of flails his arms around. I can just picture him in his poncho on Tatooine, and he's just kind of like the way he walks and moves is so I'm just so over it, kind of. And then when we see him move through the stories, he starts to embody more of like a self-possessed, like a tighter way of moving, a tighter but also more fluid at the same time, holding space for himself in his body. And I think one of the greatest moments of this transformation is seen in the cave scene, because when Luke goes in, he's kind of going against Yoda's wishes for him, which Yoda believes he's not ready to face himself really at the end of the day, and Luke finds it absolutely necessary to go in the cave, examine what's within. And when he finds Vader in there, he's very quick to act upon his aggression and his fear, despite what Obi-Wan and Yoda had been trying to teach him. He channeled his fear and his anger, and he struck Vader down violently, which then reveals to us, the viewer, and to Luke simultaneously, that within Vader's mask is Luke's face, looking right up at him. I have chills right now because I'm reliving the scene as I tell it to you, and it's such a valuable piece that we can examine as people and reflect upon for ourselves. I really believe that it is a fact that we are oftentimes our own worst enemy, our own final boss. We are oftentimes the very person who we strike down in the cave without realizing that we thought we were facing an enemy, but we were really facing ourselves. We are the ones creating the story. We are the ones living our story, and we can't expect the world or anyone else to bend to that story. So using the cave and Luke Skywalker as a vehicle for exploring this, I hope you're able to see how potent a human story this is and how relevant this is to everyone. Luke Skywalker's arc in particular is an exemplifier of the hero's journey, which was created by Joseph Campbell. There are a lot of great films out there and books, of course, that exemplify this. Of course, we have things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I mean, there are so many endless stories that people know and love. Some of the best stories ever told are those which exemplify the hero's journey. If one can find resolve within themselves. And if one can face themselves and be aware of their own shortcomings, their own deficits, their own strengths, their own value systems, and why they hold those value systems, and especially if one can become aware of the stories we're telling ourselves, and that those are stories, that those might just be shadows on the wall that we're perceiving to be reality because it's all we've ever seen, all we've ever known, all we were taught growing up by our parents or our school system or the news that we watch, the media that we consume. In a lot of ways, I believe a lot of people have been stripped of their free will and their freedom by things like social media and the digital age, because those things take away a lot of willpower to be present and to be mindful and to stay within our own frame, because it's so easy to be distracted now. It's so easy to just suppress the uncomfortable feelings or the boredom by just picking up a phone or putting something on the TV. It's so much easier than that inner work that can be so hard and so challenging. I understand it's hard, and I think it's maybe more challenging now than it has been previously, because we have these tools that also can function as addictions, and being chronically online, feeling chronically indebted to checking email, social media, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, getting involved in fighting for one's own value system and fighting for one's opinion on something. It's become so commonplace now. When I originally started on YouTube, my first video I uploaded of myself was complaining about the recent Star Wars film that came out that I did not like, The Last Jedi. I still don't like it. I still think it sucks. I personally, my value system felt confronted because I felt as though the Star Wars that I knew and loved, the original trilogy especially, was being kind of undermined. And we could get into that, but I don't really want to, because I think I've grown past that to where I don't feel like Star Wars is a part of my identity. But there was a time where I did. I love Star Wars. If there is a heaven and I could choose where my heaven would be, it would look something like the Star Wars galaxy. I just think it's so freaking beautiful. I love the way it's been created. But at the same time, it isn't part of my DNA. I am my own person, and I've learned to understand why I held so strongly onto those values and what they really meant for me. Why I love Star Wars so much, to me, is more important than Star Wars itself. What it evokes within me, what it makes me feel, what it reflects to me. The hero's journey is a perfect example of that. Even at a young age, it struck me in such a way that I understood myself better. I felt that I started to understand people better. The stories of redemption and how people like Darth Vader are still there. They're just so covered in their story and their anger and their judgment and their value system, because one of the things that's so cool about a villain like Vader is that he wasn't evil. He was just following his value system, which was his story. And if we can start reverse engineering our value system and realizing that it comes from our story, then maybe we can start being more open-minded towards the world and understanding how complex everyone is. Because if we're complex, if each of us is eternally complex, then that also goes to say that every single person that's ever lived on this planet is eternally complex. Even the people that seem the most simple have so many complex underpinnings and so many little things that happen in their life that slowly shifted them into the place of who they are now. Even if you meet someone that annoys the heck out of you or drives you crazy or makes you uncomfortable, remember that they're complex and they have a long, sometimes arduous, sometimes painful, and often fascinating story behind them. I am quite aware that I've been my own worst enemy in my life, and I've been my own final boss. I wanted to blame other people for a long time. I wanted to blame my circumstances for a long time, and it doesn't disregard the fact that other people might be challenging, and they might do things that hurt us or make us feel like our worth or our value is being encroached upon or dismissed entirely. And circumstances can be very hard in life. I don't discount that at all. But what I am learning to show up for is the fact that I'm the one carrying myself through my life. My mind is the one perceiving my reality. And I have to remember that my perception of reality is not always lining up with everyone else's, and that everyone else's perception of reality is still not reality. There is a true reality, but it's so big and so immense that it's impossible for any one person to comprehend. There's something so beautiful about that. There's something so extraordinary to me about the fact that even two people can watch two completely different news platforms and get two entirely different sets of information with two entirely different opinions and two entirely different value systems, and they can hate each other for it and blame each other for it, and yet they're both right and they're both wrong. And that's so freaking beautiful to me. It's like, it's so freaking cool. And it frees me, because I don't watch the news for that reason, because I realized if I started watching the news, I'd start shifting my value system into one small funnel. And that's not how the world works, because at the end of the day, we're just extensions of nature. We're facets of all of reality. And we're all trying to perceive it, and we all think that we're right. We all think that we have the right story. We all think we're the main character, and we are. But there's so much more to it than that. And I really believe that the more you can see, the more you are free. The next time you find yourself stressed, freaking out, depressed, anxious, angry, judging, whether it's judging someone else or judging yourself, try to take a step back and remember there are other ways of seeing it. And it's okay if you want to follow your comfort zone and you want to follow the same familiar path that you've always been following, but just knowing that there might be other paths that might be just as interesting or even more rewarding, more challenging perhaps, but more rewarding. That's when you really start to grow. That's when you really start to transform as a person. That's when you start to go on your journey from being whiny little Luke Skywalker, picking up power converters at Tashi Station, flailing around in your poncho, to learning and seeing reality is different than you thought it was in the cave. Finally, you're in a cloak, you're wearing all black, you're walking to see Jabba the Hutt, and you have confidence, and you are in your body, and you are in your mind. You are present, you are mindful, you are aware that there are a few ways the situation can go. It could go poorly, your friends could get hurt, or you can save the day because you are in your own life and you are writing the story. You're not a victim of the story anymore. Sorry, Star Wars geek moment there. Anyway, it's always great to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey that I'm on. I'm still finding my way, but it is really fun and I'm really starting to enjoy it and be a little less nervous. That being said, I want to give an extra special thanks to my supporters on Ko-fi. You guys are amazing, and I obviously take sometimes breaks from YouTube. I've taken a few recently where I was just going through it and not always believing in myself, but my Ko-fi supporters, you guys have been there for me. You've been in my corner and you've been helping me believe in myself because you guys believe in me, and that I can't tell you how happy that makes me, and it really means the world to me to hear from you guys and to see the support. It makes me feel really good about what I'm doing. So thank you so much. You guys rock. Take care of yourselves. You're the only ones that really can, and you deserve it. Take care, guys. May the force be with you.